With the patch notes coming out for Apex Legends and the Double Take Collection event, obviously this is going to shake up the ALGS meta quite a bit. So let's dive in to see how the pros are reacting to the ALGS meta, legend changes, weapon changes possibly as well. What's the spark inside of the room as we stand with these patch notes? And also, how are some of these pro teams looking in the latest scrim results and projected totals and points needed in order to move forward in the ALGS? So first off, let's dive in and talk about the meta, specifically the legend meta. So as you guys probably saw, the big one, the Blood and Bangalore nerfs that we'll take a look at. Many people are saying that the meta changes based on the new patch are as follows. It is very possible that we see a Seer Cat Fuse meta, which theoretically should push Watson up as well. So Falco19 over on the competitive Apex Reddit thread said, with 90% of teams running Blood Bang and the patch notes providing a decent shakeup, what do we see going forward? They think Blood moves from S tier down to A tier. Bang should remain unchanged. Not sure if I agree. However, you could, in theory, move off both. It's going to be interesting, though, to see what happens. And I think most people agree that Catalyst is probably still going to be back, like guaranteed to some degree. But, you know, time will tell. So if you didn't see exactly what happened, well, let's take a look. First off, you had the big legend changes. Like, I think it's obvious. The Bangalore and the Bloodhound are the big ones. There are some other changes, like, for instance, Alter. We'll talk about some changes in just a second. But so Bangalore, the smoke launcher now has all players within the smoke with a white highlight that is visible with people that are inside the smoke up to 20 meters. So an interesting one for sure. And I'm very interested to see if like aim assist is going to get involved, because I know one of the big things that you have for like Bangalore players is that, like, you know, you do have aim assist like normally, but whenever smokes go out, people that are up close don't get aim assist. So like a lot of people will have their mouse and keyboard player play Bangalore. Not always the case. I've seen a lot of controller players do well with it, but you know, I think it's going to be interesting to see with the highlights now. Does that change anything? Do they now allow aim assist in this, or is it not even going to be that big deal because maybe people don't actually, because maybe these players aren't going to be using Bangalore anymore? So the dev note was that fighting inside Bangalore smoke has been never pleasant experience for players or viewers, basically, aside from Bloodhounds out there. Well, basically, not only are they adding this highlight for people inside of the smoke, but Bloodhound also, Beast of the Hunt, threat vision. So the digital threat where people highlight as red, no longer visible through smoke or gas. So like, what even does it do at this point? I guess sometimes you miss people in the wide open. And so I guess it is nice to see the threat vision for the normal stuff without smoking. But I feel like the smoking gas was the whole big shebang with the Bloodhound ult. So now that you can't use that anymore, I personally don't feel like Bangalore and Bloodhound will be a great combo, because I just don't even know if Bangalore is going to be used. I don't know if Bloodhound is going to be used, but I guess time will tell. Now, with all of these changes, you did also have alter changes being announced as well. So the crypto EMP will now affect all players based by the void passage. So you had immediately tech coming out to say, like, I hate Apex. Like, why even make this change? Why is this something we're doing? So unfortunately, it looks like alter is no longer going to be even tried by those, you know, small niche teams that were trying it out. But a lot of people are not happy about Seer. He's back in conversation. Monsoon even came out to say, look, can we please have a gentleman's agreement to not play Seer? Can we just move past this scandal meta, or what? And Zach Mazer saying, no, I am back. So a lot of people are not in favor with some of the legend changes that you had. Others are in favor, but I think it's needless to say, Bloodhound being so gone and being so out of, like, you know, this is not even practical anymore. The smoke was the big one, and some of these changes are just not going to be good. So I think now you might see someone like Seer come back in the meta. If they don't get gentlemen's agreements involved, you're just simply going to have to watch something that wasn't so pleasant. Last time Seer was in meta, a lot of viewers didn't like to watch it. A lot of players didn't even like to play it. Maybe some disagree, but I think one of the biggest changes we got from the patch notes, and this is probably a good thing, were the end rings. We saw from like one of the coaches the other day, for whatever reason, all of the end zones were going to the north side of the map. Like nearly all of them that have ended in Pro League so far. I want to say, if I had to guess, it was about 85. I mean, it was so freaking bad. About 80% plus, maybe 85 were all ending on the north side of the map. None of them were going to the south side. So like, what the heck was going on? Finally, they come out with the update that end rings will now be more evenly distributed throughout the map. Each quadrant of the map will now have roughly 25% of getting selected for the ring. So interested to see how this all plays out. And of course, many people came out to say, you know, God is real, man. This is just the best part of the patch notes, and hopefully that stays the case. Also, though, you had to make mention of the weapon changes. So these weren't necessarily as big as Bloodhound nerfs, but they definitely are still important. One of the big ones is that the G7 Scout, will it be back in meta? Of course, 3030 has taken a little bit of a backseat since they had its changes, but it's still very good and viable and usable today. Well, G7 is really no different. It's kind of different. It still does get used sometimes, but I think this buff will definitely make it slightly more used. So the damage was increased to 33 instead of 32, and rate of fire also been increased, but they did adjust the recoil to be more consistent. And their big note was simply that the G7 was underwhelming, and they wanted to buff it up a little bit so that it can compete with the rest of the marksman and sniper roster. So interested to see how that one goes. Then the Havoc, also all mag sizes have been reduced for the Havoc. It has been nerfed. I don't really know if this is going to be enough, but it definitely is a big one. We've seen like clips from Verholst and, you know, like one clipping 2 different people with one clip of the Havoc. It's crazy how much damage this thing can do. And the turbocharger is great, but it's definitely not needed to make this gun deadly. And, you know, the fact that they didn't nerf the damage at all, I'm interested to see if it actually makes a huge difference. I know it will be different and it will definitely be less effective, but I still think this gun might be something you want to pick up. Because think about it. I mean, going into an end game with a blue mag Havoc, you know, in today's age isn't really the end of the world. And so now imagine just going into the end game with a purple mag. It's the same as today's blue mag. It really isn't that problematic. So I still think it's going to be something that people are going to abuse, and it's not going to be like a super big nerf. And we'll see if it actually does still remain Havoc or be Havoc meta. R99 also had some reduced hip fire randomness. They basically said the R99 was just so whack. They had to get, you know, they had to do something to it. I don't know if it's going to be enough to bring it back into meta. Needless to say, people are interested in something different. Also wanted to make mention, how are we looking inside of Pro League? Well, let me just tell you that things are coming down to the wire. Not only are we going to talk about projected totals, the recent scrim results, Jayhawk actually put out an amazing graph and also a note that I just think is so ridiculous. So the performance landscape so far for June 20th, 2024, this is the World's Edge by Stormpoint PPG, so points per game. Not only do you see which teams are like more dominant, like obviously you could see Falcons are really good at your you know, Stormpoint games, not too like crazy on World's Edge, like somewhere in the middle of the pack, but you know, Stormpoint, they're insane, right? They're all the way up. Well, just because they're all the way up doesn't mean they're actually right here. They're actually more so up here. The graph literally could not fit how good they were doing on Stormpoint, and even said that no, the Falcons are actually so much higher on Stormpoint PBG, they couldn't even fit on the sheet. So you have to see the full stats, and we'll talk about those in just a second. So on the flip side of this, you have some teams that are really good World's Edge oriented. You know, Liquid's a pretty good World's Edge team. We even have Bleed, which I think is just going to kind of be like Skidmark. Yeah, obviously E8's over here. They're partnered with Bleed. We talked about this in yesterday's video. Just stay tuned, I guess, at the end of the day for that. But I really am excited to see how these you know, graphs stay true towards the end. You're still seeing your top teams, right? TSM still up here, LG still up here, Falcon still up here, NRG, like all the super teams are about where they need to be and showing themselves to be pretty well. On the flip side of this, teams like Yup and DSG, it's really sucky to see DSG down here, man. They are not only not doing good on World's Edge, they're not doing good on Stormpoint. They're having a hard time, man. And overall, the positive teams are this diagonal line. So shout out to Jayhawk for putting together a nice graph. He's actually done this many times in the past, and it brings a lot of good talking points into this. Also, the performance landscape, as you can see, Team Falcons in first with an average 10.9 PPG for net. Then World's Edge, you know, Liquid Alienware in first at 9, and Falcons though 15.1. So just take a look at this. 7.9 is like the top for Furia. They're the highest, right? Well, you would think about double that, right? But this really isn't double. Falcons really would be about right here or so if you could actually put their scorecard on there. So really solid for them. I know I've given the Falcons a lot of hate lately, or not hate, but a lot of doubt. And I really talk all the talking points I can think of. And I'm, you know, at the end of the day, man, they are the best team right now. I got to tip my hat to them. Those guys are crushing it. So let's take a look at our latest scrim results. How are these teams doing inside of Oversight? Well, firstly, I really am just hoping and praying that Not Moist can keep this up, because they once again have got first place, just like they did yesterday. We've talked about this. This team absolutely needs, at this point, I don't even know if you would say a miracle, but they really need super strong, crazy consistency to finish out Pro League, and they are winning just like they need to be, but it's just in scrims. And my problem with them is that they do so good in scrims, but then here we are probably, you know, 2 days from now, we're not going to do this same thing inside of Pro League like we need to. And fingers crossed, I would love to eat my words on that, and I really hope the best for Moist, but sadly, man, they are doing so good in scrims, but we're not getting those results quite yet in Pro League, and hopefully that does flip pretty soon. Liquid Alienware in second, same scenario. I feel like, you know, they haven't necessarily been the craziest of consistent teams as of late inside of Scrims, but Liquid also isn't showing that normal, you know, past LG Shiva side that we saw to them. So hopefully they can bring that back out. Flat in third, Skidmark in fourth, LG in fifth, Complexity in sixth. Still, I gotta, you know, hats off to Complexity. I don't feel like, honestly, at the beginning of this year, anybody would have bet that Complexity is doing as good as they are, with the fact that Lou was a last minute roster update. Kimchi's coming out of coach and he's back in it, and these guys are back, like, not only just doing good, they made land, they did pretty good in land, but they're also one of the top pro league teams right now. So big shout out to them. TSM in seventh, Elevate in eighth. Really still hoping for a miracle for these guys in pro league as well. Team Falcons in ninth, Fluffy Aimers in 10th. Falcons had a crazy day. Like, I think Zero's power was out. Hal's power, I think, went out as well in the middle of it. So really weird day for them. Not Moist. Here we go again. Back to back Scrim wins. I don't understand, man. Like, why can they do it so well inside of Scrims? And, you know, just fast forward to 2 days from now. I hope 2 days from now I can remember to clip this part and say, did not Moist actually deliver, or did they once again have another upsetting day inside of Pro League? Because these guys are just showing their worth like never before inside of Oversight. But hopefully they can get to that finish line inside of Pro League in a matter of days. EC in second, TSM in third, Team Falcons in fourth, Fluffy Aimers in fifth, Yup in sixth, LG, Pioneers, SSG, CCE in the top 10, Skidmark here, Cloud9, NRG, Weave, Complexity. A lot of the big name teams on the second side of things not able to stay in that top 10, but interested to see how it all goes. Now let's take a look at these projected totals and points needed in order to make land. So shout out to Xander Commander over on the competitive Apex Reddit thread. Heading into the final matches, number one thing to note is that projected totals assumes 7 games for finals. Of course, finals are match point for regional finals. You never really know if that happens, but just take into account that this is based on a 7-game finals as well. So you can also see the projected points needed on the right side. So just to explain this a little bit, so you have these teams and their games played so far. So you'll notice it's based on a rank and how much they're projecting average so far. So Falcons are right now averaging 23 per day that they play, and so Liquid is in second, you know, then LG is also in second, SSG is also in second, averaging 15.3 a day. But you'll see LG and Liquid only have 3 games played rather than SSG and Falcons 4 games played. So that's kind of how they're ranking them, based on the average points that they're getting per day that they play. So with that being said, you have situations where even though SSG has 61 points and Liquid and LG have 46, it's still, like, you know, based upon the fact that they're a game behind, they're more than likely going to pass SSG is kind of what it's saying, or at least tie with them anyway. So of course time will tell. So projected points needed for, you know, Liquid and LG, SSG is 25. I mean, these guys are really in an easy spot to get it. SSG is only 10 points away from projected points needed, and more than likely they're going to make it. Now on the flip side, as you get towards the bottom, this is the storylines we really want to make mention of. So Moist Esports is in the middle of the pack here, right? Currently ranked 19, and then 17th ranked adjusted. So that's basically where they have them considering their average points per game. Now Moist Esports is only 3 games in. They are a game behind, so it's not too bad. They just simply need to stay consistent. They're looking a little bit better than what you have with E8, but both of these guys still needing a good point. Projected points needed so far for Moist, 46.8. Projected points needed for E8, 43.8. However, E8 is a game behind. They've already done you know, an extra game, so Moist will have extra opportunity to do so. But what really sucks is, yeah, of course, E8, Moist, some of the bigger teams here in the middle of the pack. But what you really hate to see is here at the bottom goes DSG. It's nearly impossible. These guys need 59.8 points projected in needed in order to make it, man. And so that's going to be an average needed per match. They need to get 14.9. That doesn't sound hard, and being DSG in the level that they are, it is definitely possible. I'm not saying that it's not. I'm just saying that considering that they've been bottoming out a lot lately, how can you expect them to go an average of 14.9 per match? Of course, yeah, it is possible, but I guess time will tell in the end. You can also see this for the EMEA scene. Unfortunately, here at the bottom, a lot of these teams are just having a hard time. They're struggling, but most of our big teams when it comes to the EMEA region, like GG, Gaming Gladiators, of course, Alliance, Passion UA, NIP, well, obviously 07, these guys are in a much more comfortable situation. You can see their projected points needed are, you know, somewhere in the mid 30s, but their, you know, points per match are much lower. Only 9, only 7, only 8.5. So these guys are obviously looking a lot more sharp. And also you can see from APAC South, teams like Fnatic, GHS, NFX, New J, we've talked a lot about lately, Riddle, in the same predicament. Some of these already all negative. We've already talked about, right? Fnatic's already clinched their spot. New J already clinched their spot. How could they do that? Well, they are a game ahead. These guys have played 5 games, as you know, compared to the others only playing 4. So more than likely, you're going to see more APAC North teams clinch their spot this week, as long as NFX and JHS don't bottom out. If they just get dead last, maybe you don't see them clinch, but more than likely they're going to clinch. These guys literally only need 2 points per match on average, 3 points per match on average for GHS in order to make it. So, I mean, if they don't make it, that might be the biggest fumble in Apex history. And then also you could see for the APAC South region, same scenario. Legends Gaming in the negative, they've already made it. MKS already made it, and VKG in the negative already made it. So for these other guys, they're also looking pretty good. Like XNY 4.2, that's so doable. These guys should definitely make it. Now going to the bottom side of this, unfortunately though, you do have some teams struggling, and I don't know if they're going to be able to make it. And one of those is unfortunately the team that we've been following for a while, and that is Virtus Pro. I'm really sad to see, because those guys were going they were doing pretty good in Split 1 playoffs. I feel like they were definitely shocking a lot of people. And I know Team Burger was one of those that had the fan approval. When you saw them at LAN, it was like, what's going to really happen? And they kind of proved us wrong, I think. They really showed us a different version of themselves. And I think they play better on LAN than they do online. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it sucks to see them down here, to see their average points needed is going to be a whopping 22.2. I mean, it's nearly impossible. FRS definitely, I mean, FRS is impossible. I don't think they can make it. I mean, 35.3 is literally not possible. I think the number one you get is like 25. So Virtus Pro, they're going to need a miracle to happen, like literally back-to-back wins. Like, they just got to go crazy. But these are the cards that were dealt with for now. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below about the legend changes, the meta changes, and how we are looking for the future of Pro League and some of these teams. Which one are your favorites so far? And until the next time, we'll see you all later, Gators.